Today in At Issue for Teens, soul searching. Young people turn to God with newfound passion.
To people who see me and don't know me, I am representing my religion.
While the number of atheist teens skyrockets.
And I don't want to wait for hope. I want to, find the solutions myself, find something that's going to work for me.
That's At Issue today. Welcome to At Issue for Teens. I'm Kevin O'Keefe. Do you believe in God? Go to a church or a place of worship? Feel like you're the only one who does? Well, in some cases, you are. According to a study by sociologist Reginald Bibby, religion just ain't that cool anymore. But Bibby's research also found that the few of you who are religious have a stronger faith than your parents. The gap is growing between believing and non-believing Canadian teens. We're here to help us understand what that means. Is At Issue's Patrick Hickey. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
How sharp is the decline between teens who believe in God and teens who don't now?
Well, if you were to talk to old people through the generations, they'd always say teenagers are nothing more than the demon spawn of the devil.
So that's nothing new.
That's nothing new, but statistics
new?
are pointing to them that it might have been onto something.
Really?
Because the same study showed that for teens, over the last generation, their belief in God has plummeted.
Really?
In the 1970s, it was less than 1% or so said they had no belief in God. Today, it's fully one-third of teens between the ages of 15 and 19 say that they just don't think God is there.
What do the experts say the reason for this is, this sharp decline in belief in God in like a couple decades?
Well, a lot of it has to do with their parents, the baby boomers.
Blame the parents.
Blame the parents. But in this case, it might be true. You see, the baby boomers, their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents grew up in lives where work was hard, grinding work in fields, farms, factories, and mills, with little to no reward or what you call worldly goods or worldly pleasures. But then there was the church to help keep you through it, that if you had faith, you would get these worldly goods returned to you in a nice afterlife.
Right.
This was what to know. But then it reminds me of an old Italian monk who ran the Spanish Inquisition. He said that the only thing that the people were really guilty of was wanting to know themselves. Right. Along came the post-war economic miracle and the unheard of levels of affluence and prosperity that were bestowed on the baby boomer middle class. So now they didn't have to wait for what the church to tell them. They could know these things for themselves now. So worldly goods were there for their taking. So instead of putting spiritual energy and sitting in a church on a Sunday afternoon listening to some old priest talk about some old vague promise,
right,
they could be out, an afternoon barbecue, swimming in the swimming pool, driving the Cadillac through the country.
Paradise was already here.
It was already there.
Right.
So they knew for themselves and they had less need for what the spiritual knowledge of the church.
So having said that, how do you explain then this small minority of teens who have more belief in God than their parents and more faith?
Well, I think it boils down to just typical teenage rebellion.
Right, so rebel by going back.
Mom and Dad were materialist people. What better way to stick it to Mom and Dad than to be all devout up in their house?
Right, right.
But I think really what it was is that there's been a really eschewing of materialism amongst millennials, the emerging generation. The 1990 film Fight Club with Brad Pitt was sort of like a good touchstone of that. It was a movie, all post-expressionist, artistic movie that lame-bastard North American consumerism, and it touched a chord with a lot of young people and really energized their minds.
Right.
So some of these millennials, they're looking for groups that catch on to that. And the fact is that many religious organizations have always held anti-materialistic types of positions. So
really?
They were naturally able to draw these people in. And the other thing is, religious organizations, particularly evangelical Protestant groups, have made religion what it never was to kids: fun. They now offer sports tournaments, video game tournaments, rock concerts, pretty good rock concerts. So this fun element is what's really drawing and keeping these teens religious.
So how do you see this playing out in the future? Is this gap going to continue to grow between believers and non-believers?
Well, time will tell, and I think time might actually be on religion's side.
Really?
Because there's this great void of the middle of the young people. You have the people who are, on one side devoutly religious,
right,
and on the other side devoutly anti-religious. And then you have this agnostic middle people floating around with no real spiritual anchor.
Right.
But these people, when interviewed, they show that overwhelmingly they do want to have religion in two of the biggest parts of their life: their wedding and their funeral. So if they're willing to invite religion back into two huge parts of their lives, as they grow older, maybe they're willing to bring religion back into a lot of smaller aspects of their lives too.
And I guess the ball now is in the court of the faith communities, whether they can rally and, as you said, with the Protestant evangelical community, make religion more fun and attract more teens.
Yeah, Islam groups, mosques in Toronto are already holding their own self-appointed ball hockey leagues. Wow. And Jewish groups have always been big with organizing basketball tournaments in the last few years. So you are seeing this, as you said, ball is in their court, and they're really making a good play with it.
Well, thank you very much for that, Patrick.
Pleasure.
Well, when At Issue for Teens returns, what's it like growing up with and without God?